So we should be familiar with standard form. What is standard form? AX squared plus BX plus C. Why should we be familiar with that? Where have we used it before? Where? I heard somebody say something over here that worked. Snowflake, did I hear that? Yeah? What else did we use standard form with? The what? The what? No, not the Christmas tree. We also used it with the x equals negative b plus or minus the square root. Remember that thing? We used standard form there. We also used standard form at the beginning when we did completing the square, which you're all looking at me blankly. Well, the three of you that are looking at me. Remember that was where you moved something to the other side and you put the blank and you had to fill in the blank? Okay, that was also standard form. So, do we see standard form right here? Okay, now, I made a mistake and you'll have to forgive me, but on your homework it just says sketch the graph of each function, but I'm hoping that because you know me, you know that I want this, that I want this, and that I want this. Right? Even though I didn't write that in the instructions technically, I do want you to answer that for every question on your homework. How many questions did I give you on your homework? 6. Okay? So 6 graphs where you're going to do the full shebang. Okay? So, we will have an XY chart for each of these. And when we started off last week using vertex form, we would start off finding the vertex. And where would we put that vertex in our XY chart? In the middle. Now, there is a problem with this form because I can't easily pull out the vertex. So I have to do a little bit more work. You ready? I need to remember this thing right here. Huh? Negative b over 2a. That is my starting point for my vertex. So, let's look at the equation. If I do negative b over 2a, that means I have negative 4, that's going to turn into a positive 4, right? Over 2 times a, which is 2. Yes? Because a is 2, b is negative 4. We don't need c for this. So what does this give me? Negative 4 is positive 4. 2 times 2 is 4. So what's 4 over 4? What did that give me? Well, let me show you what that gave me. You ready? Watch closely. You don't want to miss this. That 1 that I just got is the x value of my vertex. So, I don't have the y value like I did in vertex form, but I do have a starting point for the middle of my XY chart, don't I? So now that I have a starting point, because that's the middle of my XY chart, what number should I put around there? 0 and negative 1, and then on the other side? 2 and 3. What do I do from here? Plug it in like Glade. Right? Okay. 2, and then I'm going to do parentheses. I'm plugging in negative 1 as my first value, so negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 minus 2, and I get a value of 4. Now I want to go back, and I don't want to retype it all in because I want to save myself some time. I want to change all those negative 1s to what? Zeros. So I need to delete the negative sign and change it to a 0, and I get negative 2. Now I want to change those zeros to what? 1s, and I get negative 4. Now, I should still get this mirror image, but just to confirm, I'm going to plug in the 2, because if for some reason this 2 does not give me a negative 2, then I have an issue with my vertex. So this is my way of checking that. So if I get negative 2, which I do, I'm pretty confident that I'm good to go. So what would go here? 4. Because of that mirror image thing still going on. So let's fill in the rest of this information. What's my vertex? It's not just 1. It's 1, comma, negative 4. What's my axis of symmetry? X equals 1. Max, min, I'll answer in just a minute. Let's see. X equals 1 means my axis of symmetry is going to be right here. Yes? And I'm going to plot all my points. Negative 1, 4, 0, negative 2, 1, negative 4, 2, negative 2, and 3, 4. Now I should be able to answer the max-min question. Does it have a maximum or a minimum? It has a minimum. And what is that minimum value? Negative 4. So the process is 90% the same as what you did before. What's different? This. Having to get your vertex starting point like that instead of just pulling out HK.
That's it?
Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that makes it different. The rest of the process is the same. So? Now, the one trick is, I'm not going to be telling you this on your quiz. You're going to have negative b over 2a memorized. And you're going to have it memorized that when you see something in standard form, this is the process you use. Plug it in. I started off with no y values this time. So I plugged in negative 1, got 4, 0, got negative 2, plugged in 1, got negative 4, and then I checked for that mirror image just by doing one extra one, and as long as I have that mirror image, then I'm pretty confident my vertex is right. Okay? If I don't get that mirror image here, then I need to go back to here and see what I did wrong. Okay? So? We ready for number 2? All right, number 2, I see an A value of negative 2, I see a B value of negative 16, and I see a C value of negative 36. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. So, before I set up my XY chart, I need to do what? Negative B over 2A. Yes? Yeah. So, negative B, and B is negative 16. So when B is negative, you're always going to have the negative from the equation, or the negative from the formula, and the negative from the number. So it's going to end up turning positive. Over 2 times A, and A is negative 2. So what have I got? Positive 16 over negative 4. What does that become? Negative 4, right? What did I just find? The X value of my vertex. Which means what about my axis of symmetry? It's X equals negative 4. As I get all my stuff listed there. Alright, so let's do our XY chart. And where does the negative 4 go on my XY chart? In the middle of my X values. And what should I fill in around it? Negative 5 and negative 6 one way, and the other way, negative 3 and negative 2. Excuse me. All right, so let's plug it in. Negative 2, parentheses. I'm going to start off with negative 6 squared minus 16, parentheses, negative 2, minus 36, and I get negative 76. Holy crummy, that's really big. Let's make sure we did it right. You got negative 12?
Same.
Did I type something in wrong? Oh, well, I made that a 2 instead of a 6. That changes things. How about that? Negative 12. There we go. It makes sense to type in your numbers right, correct? Now I'm going to change all the negative 6s to negative 5s, yeah? and I get negative 6. Now I'm going to change all the negative 5s to negative 4s. And I get negative 4. Now I'm going to try negative 3 just to check for that mirror image to know that my vertex is right. Because if my vertex isn't right, then it's going to screw up the whole rest of the process if I don't check it. So I'm going to change that to a negative 3, and that to a negative 3, and I got negative 6. Yay. There's my mirror image, so I'm pretty confident this one's negative 12, and I'm done with that part. So now let's graph. I'm going to put in my axis of symmetry first. You can do it afterwards if you want to. I just like doing it first because otherwise it'll smear my pen and it just looks ugly then. So let's see, negative 6, negative 12, negative 5, negative 6, negative 4, negative 4, negative 3, negative 6, and negative 2, negative 12. Does it make sense that this one opens up upside down? Why? Because what was negative? My A value was negative, so it makes sense that it opens upside down. Over here, A was positive, so it opened right side up. Does this have a max or a min? A max. And what is that maximum value? Negative 4, and I forgot to fill in the Y value right there, but there it is. So? You ready for number 3? Number 3 I threw in there to mess with you. Because guess what? That is standard form, but it's also vertex form. And technically it's also intercept form, which is the form we're going to learn next. It is all of the forms. Because that right there, my friends, is a mother function.
A what? Oh, yeah, that's right.
That is a mother function.
I was like, oh, what?
So, if I were to solve this using the standard form method. Now, I already solved this for you once using the vertex form method. But if I were to solve it using the standard form method, I have an A value of 1, a B value of 0, and a C value of 0. Because B and C don't exist. So when I do negative B over 2A, I'm getting negative 0, which doesn't really make sense. It's just 0, over 2 times 1. And what's 0 over anything? 0. So on my XY chart, 0 is what goes in the middle. So there's my vertex, it's 0. What's my axis of symmetry? X equals 0. Just getting all my information here. All right, how do I find my values? Let's see, I want to do negative 1 and negative 2, positive 1 and positive 2. So, plugging in, remember every time you plug in a number, plug it in parentheses. So negative 2 squared looks like that, and I get 4. Change the negative 2 to a negative 1, and I get 1. Change the negative 1 to a 0, and I get 0. Just to check the mirror image, I'm going to put a 1 in there, and I get 1, and that confirms to me that I do have that mirror image. So I'm going to finish off my vertex. My vertex is 0, 0. I can draw my axis of symmetry in. And I can go ahead and plot those points. Now, careful how they are counting. They are not counting by ones, they're counting by 1/2. So when I do negative 2, to get to 4, I can't just count up 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. I have to count up 8 lines actually, because if I count up 4 lines, I'm only at 2. Does that make sense? And then negative 1, 1. And the rest of my points. Whoop. Didn't go through it. There we go. Does that one have a maximum or a minimum?
Minimum.
And what is that minimum? 0. All right, I want you to take a minute and try number 4. All by your lonesome. All right, what's my A value here? -1. What's my B value? +2. What's my C value? So if I do negative B over 2A, that gives me -2 over 2 times -1, which gives me -2 over -2, which is 1. So the x value of my vertex is 1, and my axis of symmetry is x equals 1. Where does the 1 go on my xy chart?
In the middle.
In the middle. Fill in some numbers around, so 0 and -1, and then 2 and 3. And we start plugging stuff in. Yes? So, be careful as you plug this in, because there's a negative sign with what I'm plugging in, and there's a negative sign here. So watch, I got to put this negative sign, and then I got to open up some parentheses, plug in my -1, and square it. +2, parentheses, -1, -4. And I get -7. Now I'm going to go back and change all those -1s to what? Zeros. And I get -4. And now I'm going to change those zeros to 1s. I get -3. And just to make sure I'm doing this right, I'm going to check the 2s to make sure I have that mirror image. And again, if I don't have that mirror image, where do I need to go back to fix it? I did something wrong here, which means I set up my XY chart with the wrong X values. Okay? So there's my -4. Just proves to me that I do have the mirror image. I've got my vertex on track. So this would be -7. Yeah? I'm going to draw in that axis of symmetry. And let's plot my points. -1, -7, 0, -4, 1, -3, 2, -4, and 3, -7. All right, so let me fill out the rest of my information. My vertex is 1, -3. Do I have a maximum or a minimum? And what is that maximum value? Beautiful. Did it make sense that that one opened up upside down?
Yes.
Why?
Because you have a negative A value.
Because A was negative. You got this. All right, happy studying.